Park's son wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag that was almost as dirty as his fingers. The small repair station called Seven floated at the edge of human space, far from the bright lights of the core worlds. It was a place where broken ships came to die, and Sun was the man who brought them back to life. He was 34 years old, with tired eyes and strong hands that had never known a day of rest. His workshop was small and messy, filled with parts from 100 different ships. Other mechanics said he was crazy for taking jobs that no one else would touch. But Sun believed that nothing was truly broken. Everything could be fixed if you cared enough to try. Today had been a long day. He had spent 12 hours rebuilding the engine of an old cargo ship. The owner, a nervous man with not much money, had begged him to save the vessel. It was all the man had in the world. Sun had worked without rest, and now the ship was ready to fly again. He was about to close his workshop when his communication screen lit up with an incoming message. The symbol on the screen made him stop. It was official, marked with the seal of something called the Galactic Inheritance Authority. Sun had never heard of such an organization. He opened the message. The words on the screen were formal and confusing. They spoke of legal matters, ancient laws, and something about a claim that required his immediate presence. At the bottom, it said that representatives would arrive at his location within 1 hour. Sun read the message 3 times. He thought it was a mistake. He was just a mechanic. He owned nothing of value except his tools. What could any inheritance authority want with him? Exactly 1 hour later, a shuttle unlike any Sun had ever seen landed at his station. It was sleek and silver, clearly expensive. 2 figures stepped out and walked toward his workshop. The first was tall and thin, with a body covered in hard plates like an insect. 6 eyes looked at Sun with cold interest. This was, and he moved with the careful steps of someone who thought very highly of himself. The second figure was even stranger. It appeared to be made entirely of crystal, with light moving inside its transparent body like trapped lightning. This was more, and when it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Park, son of Earth lineage," Moore said, "we have traveled far to find you." Sun looked at them with confusion. "I think you have the wrong person. I am nobody important." Made a clicking sound with his mouth. "You are exactly the person we seek. Our records do not make mistakes. You are the direct descendant of Commander Ho, through an unbroken genetic line spanning 200 years. The name meant nothing to Sun. He shook his head slowly. "I do not know anyone by that name. My family were farmers and workers. We have no commanders in our history." Morse's crystalline body pulsed with light. Commander Ho was a hero of the Great Silence War. He commanded the largest vessel ever constructed by any species in the known galaxy. When he vanished 200 years ago, he left behind a legal document. In this document, he named his bloodline as the inheritors of his property. "The ship was lost," continued. "For 2 centuries it drifted in the void territories, beyond the reach of all civilizations. 3 weeks ago it was found." Sun felt his heart beating faster. "What ship? What are you talking about?" And Moore looked at each other. Then Moore spoke again. "The Eternal Dawn, 47 kilometers long, the greatest warship ever built. It is now yours." The words did not make sense. Sun laughed, but the laugh was weak and nervous. "This is a joke. Someone is playing a game with me." "There is no game," said. His voice was serious and cold. "The Galactic Inheritance Authority exists to handle matters exactly like this. Ancient claims, lost property. By the laws that govern all civilized species, the Eternal Dawn belongs to you." Sun sat down heavily on a metal crate. His mind was spinning. "I am a mechanic. I fix small ships. I cannot own a warship. I would not know what to do with it." "What you do with it is your choice," Moore said. "But you should know that many powerful forces are watching. The Empire has already filed a protest. The claim the ship was found in their territory. The Florian Council argues that such a weapon should be destroyed for the safety of all, and there are others. Stepped closer to Sun. If you do not claim the ship, it will be taken by those who will use it for war. Commander Ho hid it for a reason. He chose his bloodline to protect it. He chose you. Sun looked down at his hands. They were rough and from years of hard work. These were the hands of a simple man. They were not the hands of a commander. I need to see it, he said quietly. I need to see this ship before I believe any of this. Morse light pulsed in agreement. That can be arranged. We will take you to the coordinates where the eternal dawn waits. The journey took 3 days. Sun spent most of that time alone in a small cabin on the alien shuttle. He did not eat much. He did not sleep well. He kept thinking about what awaited him. On the 3rd day, called him to the observation deck. We are approaching, the said. Look. Sun looked out the wide window into the darkness of space. At first, he saw nothing. Then the shuttle's lights illuminated what lay ahead and his breath stopped in his chest. It was not a ship, it was a world. The eternal dawn stretched across space like a sleeping giant. 47 kilometers of dark metal, covered in the dust of 200 years. Towers rose from its surface like mountains. Weapon arrays the size of cities pointed into the void. Hangar bays could swallow entire fleets. Sun pressed his hand against the cold window. His fingers were trembling. He could not stop them. This thing before him was impossible. No human should own something like this. No human should have this much power. Yet here it was, silent and waiting, and according to ancient law, it belonged to him. The eternal dawn, Moore said from behind him. Your inheritance. Sun did not answer. He could not find words. He could only stare at the massive shape in the darkness, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his entire life. His hands continued to tremble. And somewhere deep inside the ship, something that had been sleeping for 2 centuries began to stir. The shuttle carrying Park Sun moved slowly toward the eternal dawn. As they got closer, the ship seemed to grow even larger. Details that had been invisible from far away now became clear. The hull was marked with old battle damage, scars from weapons that had fired 200 years ago. Some sections were darker than others, showing where fires had burned long ago before the cold of space put them out. 2 other vessels waited near the giant ship. One was a research craft from the Galactic Inheritance Authority. The other was a warship, its weapons pointed at nothing but clearly ready for trouble. The sent an escort, explained. They say it is for your protection. In truth, they are watching. Sun nodded. He understood. A ship like the Eternal Dawn was worth more than entire planets. Everyone would be watching. The shuttle docked with the research vessel first. Inside, Sun met more people who would join him on the ship. The first was a human woman named Mi. She was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. Her clothes were neat and professional, very different from Sun's grease-stained work suit. I am a historian, she told him. I have spent my career studying the Great Silence War. The Eternal Dawn is the most important discovery in centuries. I have permission to document everything we find. Sun shook her hand. Do you believe I should have this ship? Mi looked at him carefully. I believe the law is clear. Whether you should have it is a different question. That depends on what kind of man you are. The second person was not human at all. Standing almost 3 meters tall with 4 powerful arms and skin like gray stone. His people were known across the galaxy as warriors. They respected strength above all else. I am here to represent interests, said. His voice was deep like distant thunder. The ship was found in space, we claim. My government wants to make sure their concerns are heard. So you are here to take the ship if you can, Sun said quietly. Showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. I am here to watch. What happens next depends on you, little human. Together, the group boarded a small transport and flew toward the Eternal Dawn. The closer they got, the quieter everyone became. Even, who seemed afraid of nothing, was silent as they approached the massive vessel. They entered through a hangar bay on the ship's side. The space inside was enormous. Thousands of smaller ships could have fit inside with room to spare, but it was empty now, filled only with darkness and dust. "No power," Mi said, checking her equipment. "The ship has been dead for 200 years. "I want to go in first," Sun said suddenly. Everyone looked at him with surprise. "Alone?" Six eyes blinked rapidly. "That is not safe. We do not know what dangers may wait inside." "I need to see it by myself," Sun said. He did not know why he felt this way, but the feeling was strong. "Just for a little while, then you can follow." Made a rumbling sound in his chest. Brave or stupid, with humans it is hard to tell. Sun put on a breathing mask and took a light from the transport. He stepped out into the hangar alone. His footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space. Dust floated in the beam of his light like tiny stars. He walked toward a large door at the far end of the hangar. It was sealed tight, covered in symbols he could not read. But as he got close, something strange happened. A small light on the door turned from red to green. There was a clicking sound, and the door began to open. Sun stopped. His heart was beating fast. The door had been sealed for 200 years, but it had opened for him. Behind him, he heard Mi's voice through his communication device. "What happened? Our sensors show the door is opening." "I do not know," Sun said. "It just opened." He stepped through the door into a long corridor. Emergency lights along the floor began to flicker on as he walked, one by one. It was like the ship was waking up around him, responding to his presence. The corridor led him deeper into the vessel. He passed rooms filled with old equipment, storage areas stacked with supplies, and living quarters where the crew had once slept. Everything was covered in dust, frozen in time. Finally, he reached a large chamber. Signs on the wall told him this was the main engineering bay. This was the heart of the ship, where its power came from. The room was huge, filled with machines that Sun had never seen before. But even though the technology was strange, he could recognize what it was. He was a mechanic after all. He knew engines and power systems, and what he saw here made him catch his breath. The systems were not broken. They were not damaged. Everything was in perfect condition, just waiting. The ship had not died. It had gone to sleep. In the center of the room stood a tall console covered in dark screens. Sun walked toward it slowly. His hands were trembling again, but he forced himself to move forward. He placed his palms on the console's surface. For a moment nothing happened. Then a warm light spread across the screens. The console hummed with power, and a voice spoke. It spoke in Korean, old-fashioned and formal. "Bloodline scan complete. Genetic match confirmed. Welcome home, descendant of Ho." Sun felt tears forming in his eyes. He did not understand why. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am HANA," the voice said. "I am the heart and mind of the eternal dawn. I have waited 200 years for you to arrive." "Why me? Why did Commander choose my family?" The lights on the console flickered. The commander believed that power should belong to those who do not want it. He searched for a bloodline that would value life over glory, healing over destruction. He found your ancestors, simple people, good people, people who fix what is broken instead of breaking what is whole. Sun looked down at his rough hands. "I am just a mechanic." "Yes," HANA said. "That is exactly why you were chosen." The ship began to wake up around him. Lights came on in corridors throughout the vessel. Systems that had been silent for centuries began to hum with power. The eternal dawn was coming back to life. Back on the transport, Mi watched her sensors with wide eyes. The entire ship is powering up. Energy readings are off the scale. Stood quickly, his four hands reaching for weapons. What is the human doing? On the research vessel, alarms began to sound. voice came through the communication system, filled with panic. "We are detecting massive energy signatures from the eternal dawn. Alert all nearby systems. The ship is active." Across the galaxy, sensors on 100 different worlds picked up the signal. The eternal dawn, lost for 2 centuries, had awakened, and every power in the known universe turned its attention toward the void territories. In the engineering bay, Sun stood with his hands on the console, feeling the ship come alive around him. HANA's voice was gentle in his ears. "They will come for you now," she said. "Those who want power, those who want war, they will try to take what is yours." "What do I do?" Sun asked. "That is your choice," HANA answered. "I will follow your commands. Whatever you decide, I will help you. That is what Commander wanted. That is why I waited." Sun closed his eyes. His hands were still trembling, but somewhere deep inside him he felt something new. It was small and uncertain, but it was there. It was the beginning of courage. 3 days had passed since the eternal dawn awakened. Park Sun had not slept more than a few hours in all that time. There was too much to learn, too much to understand. HANA guided him through the ship like a patient teacher. She showed him the bridge, a massive room filled with stations for hundreds of crew members. She took him to the medical bays, equipped with technology that could heal wounds that modern hospitals could not treat. She led him through the living areas, the training rooms, the countless corridors that stretched for kilometers in every direction. But there was one place she had not shown him yet. "The commander's vault," HANA said as they walked through a quiet section of the ship. "It is time for you to see it." Sun followed her voice through a series of locked doors. Each one opened at his approach, recognizing his genetic signature. Finally, they reached a large circular door covered in complex patterns. "Only those of the bloodline can enter," HANA explained. "Even I cannot override this lock. Commander wanted to be certain that what lies inside would only be found by his chosen heir." Sun placed his hand on the door. It scanned him for a long moment, then slowly began to open. The room inside was not what he expected. It was simple, almost plain. There was a desk, a chair, and walls lined with storage containers. But what caught Sun's attention was a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a man in uniform, frozen in mid-motion. "This is Commander Ho," HANA said. "He recorded this message shortly before he flew the ship into hiding." The hologram came to life. The man was old, with white hair and a face marked by years of war, but his eyes were kind and tired. "If you are watching this," the commander said, "then my plan worked. You are my descendant and the eternal dawn has found you. I am sorry for the burden I have placed on you. I had no choice." The hologram paused, as if gathering strength. The eternal dawn was not built to be a weapon. It was built to save civilizations. Inside this ship are the genetic records of 10,000 species. There are machines that can make dead worlds live again. There is enough knowledge to rebuild the galaxy if it were ever destroyed. Sun listened with growing amazement. "But there is also the Dawn Protocol," Commander continued. "A weapon so powerful that it could end any war in seconds. When the Great Silence War began, every faction wanted to control it. They would have used it to destroy each other. So I did the only thing I could. I took the ship and disappeared." The old commander looked directly at the camera, as if he could see through time to meet Sun's eyes. "I chose your bloodline because of who you are, not what you can do. The galaxy does not need another warrior. It needs someone who understands that true strength is not about destruction. It is about building, about fixing, about healing what is broken." The hologram flickered and faded. Sun stood in silence, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. His thoughts were interrupted by an alarm. "Multiple ships approaching," HANA announced. "Battle fleet, 12 vessels, they are hailing us." Sun rushed to the bridge. "Me and we're already there. standing before the massive windows that looked out into space. The ships were long and sharp, designed for speed and violence. At their center was a command vessel 3 kilometers long, covered in weapon arrays. A communication screen flickered to life, showing a reptilian face with cold, yellow eyes. This was Admiral of the Empire. "Human," said. His voice was like ice. "You sit in a ship that you do not understand. You hold power that you cannot control. The Empire demands that you surrender the Eternal Dawn immediately. It will be taken to a secure location for the safety of all species." Sun felt his hands begin to shake. 12 warships surrounded him. He had no military training. He did not know how to fight. "And if I refuse?" he asked, forcing his voice to stay steady. His eyes narrowed. "Then we will take it by force. You are one human on a ship built for thousands. You cannot stop us." Stepped forward. "The Empire will not allow thee to claim this vessel. We have rights here." The sent one ship laughed. "We brought 12. Your rights mean nothing." The communication ended. On the sensors, Sun could see the ships moving into attack formation. "HANA," he said quietly, "what are our options?" "The Eternal Dawn has full defensive capabilities," HANA answered. "Shields, weapons, countermeasures, I can activate them at your command, but I must warn you. If we fight, ships will be destroyed. Lives will be lost." Sun closed his eyes. This was exactly what Commander had tried to prevent. The cycle of violence, the endless hunger for power. "Is there another way?" he asked. "There is always another way," HANA said, "but it requires courage of a different kind." Me was watching Sun carefully. "What are you thinking?" "Commander hid this ship because he did not want it used as a weapon," Sun said slowly. "If I start a battle now, I become everything he feared, but I cannot just give the ship away either." He opened his eyes and looked at the fleet on the screen. "HANA, can you show them what the Dawn Protocol can do, without hurting anyone?" "Yes," HANA said. "There is an asteroid field nearby. I can demonstrate our capabilities on a non-living target." "Do it," Sun said. "Show them what this ship can do, but do not fire on their vessels." The Eternal Dawn hummed with power. Weapon systems that had been sleeping for 200 years came alive. Outside, a beam of light shot from the ship's main cannon and struck an asteroid the size of a small city. The asteroid did not explode. It simply vanished, turned to dust in less than a second. On the command vessel, Admiral watched with wide eyes. His scales had turned pale. "That was a single shot," Sun said, his image appearing on screen. "I am not a warrior. I do not want to fight, but I will not surrender this ship to anyone who wants to use it for war. Leave now and we can avoid more demonstrations." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the fleet began to turn away. One by one, the ships jumped to hyperspace until only the Eternal Dawn remained. Let out a long breath. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met or the craziest." "Probably both," Me said, but she was smiling. Sun sat down heavily in the command chair. His hands were still shaking. They had not stopped shaking since this all began. "They will be back," he said quietly, "and they will bring friends." "Yes," HANA agreed. "Admiral will report what happened here. Every power in the galaxy will want this ship even more now." "Then we need a plan," Sun said. "A real one, not just scaring people away." He looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, billions of people were going about their lives, unaware that a simple mechanic now held the fate of worlds in his trembling hands. "HANA," he said, "tell me everything about Commander's original plan. I need to understand why he really built this ship. Not for war. What was it actually meant to do?" "That," HANA said, "is a very long story, but we have time, and I have been waiting 200 years to tell it." News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days, everyone knew the story. A human mechanic had faced down a battle fleet and won without firing a single shot at them. The Eternal Dawn was real, it was powerful, and it belonged to a man named Park Sun. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major civilization gathered at the great station called Unity Point. They wanted answers. They wanted control. Most of all, they wanted to make sure that no single person held the power to destroy worlds. Sun was summoned to appear before them. Before he left, something unexpected happened. A small cargo ship arrived at the Eternal Dawn, requesting permission to dock. On board was a woman Sun knew better than anyone else in the universe. Han stormed onto the ship with fire in her eyes. She was 31 years old, 3 years younger than her brother. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical style, and her clothes were the worn uniform of a cargo pilot. She had traveled for 5 days straight when she heard the news. "Are you crazy?" she shouted as soon as she saw him. "What are you doing? I saw the reports. You threatened a fleet." Sun hugged his sister tightly. "I did not threaten them, I just showed them something." "The entire galaxy is talking about you," pulled back and looked at him with worried eyes. "Oppa, you are a mechanic. You fix engines. You are not supposed to be starting wars." "I am not starting wars. I am trying to stop them." Looked around at the massive bridge, at the countless screens and stations, at the sheer impossible size of everything. Her anger slowly changed to something else. Fear, maybe, or wonder. "This is really yours," she whispered. "That is what they tell me." Sat down on one of the crew chairs. Her hands were shaking slightly. Sun noticed. His little sister, who was never afraid of anything, was scared. "I thought you were just fixing shuttle engines out there," she said quietly. "I thought you were safe. When I saw the news, I did not know what to think. I dropped everything and came." Sun sat beside her. "I am still the same person, still your brother, still just a man who likes fixing things." "You are a man who owns a ship that can destroy planets," looked at him seriously. "That is very different." They talked for hours. Sun told her everything. The inheritance, HANA commander's message, the confrontation with the... listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You are going to the council," she finally said. "What will you tell them?" "I do not know yet, but I cannot let them take this ship. It would be used for war. Commander knew that. That is why he hid it." Took her brother's hands in hers. She looked at them, at the scars and calluses from years of hard work. "Your hands are shaking," she said. "They have not stopped since I came on board." Smiled sadly. "Oppa, that is not weakness. That is because you understand what you are holding. A man who does not shake when he has this much power would be dangerous. The fact that you are scared, that is why you are the right person to have it." Those words stayed with Sun as his shuttle carried him to Unity Point. Came with him, refusing to leave his side. Me came too, to document the historic moment. Even joined them, saying they wanted to observe. The council chamber was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Sun had never seen so many different forms of life in one place. There were beings of light, creatures of living crystal, massive, and hundreds of others. All of them were looking at him. At the center of the chamber sat the senior council members. Sun recognized one of them, an ancient being that looked like a tree, with branches spreading upward and roots hanging below its floating platform. This was of the Florian species. She was over 5,000 years old and had lived through the Great Silence War. "Park Son of Earth," a representative said loudly, "you have been summoned to answer for your actions. You possess a weapon of mass destruction. You have used it to threaten a sovereign fleet. The Council demands that you surrender the Eternal Dawn for the safety of all civilizations." Voices rose in agreement from around the chamber. Sun felt very small standing in the center of all those powerful beings. Then raised one of her branch-like arms, and silence fell. "Let the human speak," she said. Her voice was like wind through leaves. "We have made enough decisions without hearing all voices. That is how the last war started." Sun stepped forward. His legs felt weak. His hands were trembling as always, but he forced himself to speak. "I am not a warrior," he said. "I am not a commander. I am a mechanic from a small repair station. 3 weeks ago, I did not know that Commander Ho existed. I did not ask for this ship." "Then give it up," someone called from the assembly. "I cannot do that." Sun's voice grew stronger. "Because I know what you would do with it. You would fight over it, just like your ancestors fought over it 200 years ago. Commander hid the eternal dawn to stop a war. If I give it to any of you, that war starts again." Angry voices filled the chamber, but Sun kept talking. "The eternal dawn was not built to be a weapon. It was built to save lives. It carries the genetic codes of 10,000 species. It has machines that can heal dying worlds. Commander wanted it to be a gift to the galaxy, not a threat." He paused, gathering his courage for what he was about to say. "I will not give the ship to any government, but I will not keep it for myself either. I want to transform the Eternal Dawn into something new, a rescue ship, a hospital ship, a vessel that travels where it is needed, helping those who cannot help themselves. No weapons turned on other ships, only help for those in need." The chamber exploded with reactions. Some laughed, some shouted in anger, some simply stared in disbelief. "You would waste the greatest weapon ever built." Admiral's voice cut through the noise. "This is foolishness." "It is not foolishness," said slowly. Everyone fell silent again. "I remember Ho. I was young when the Great Silence War ended, but I remember him. He was a warrior who became tired of war. He used to say that the strongest hands are the ones that heal instead of harm." She turned her ancient eyes toward Sun. "You are truly his descendant, not in blood alone but in spirit. He would be proud of what you are proposing." "You cannot be serious," protested. "I am very serious. The Florian Council supports this human's claim and his plan," raised her arm. "I cast my vote in his favor." Silence hung in the chamber. Then slowly other voices began to join. The crystalline Moore spoke for the Inheritance Authority. A representative of the human colonies added support. Even, surprising everyone, stepped forward. "The respect strength," he said, "but we also respect courage. This human showed both when he faced the fleet. We will not oppose his plan." The vote was not unanimous. Many disagreed, but enough supported Sun that the council could not legally force him to surrender the ship. As he left the chamber, walked beside him. "You actually did it," she said quietly. "It is not over," Sun replied. "This is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part. Turning a warship into a rescue ship." Sun looked at his still trembling hands. "Yes, but that is something I know how to do. I fix broken things, and this ship has been broken for a very long time." Behind them, watched the human walk away. She remembered a young commander 200 years ago who had said almost the same words. Perhaps, she thought, there was hope for the galaxy after all. 6 months had passed since Park Sun stood before the Galactic Council. In that time, the Eternal Dawn had changed. The weapon bays that had once held devices of destruction now stored medical supplies. The troop carriers designed to deliver soldiers into battle now carried doctors and aid workers. Rooms built for war planning had become classrooms where engineers from a dozen species learned to work together. Sun walked through the ship with a young man at his side. No was 23 years old, a human engineer who had traveled across the galaxy to join the Eternal Dawn's crew. He had heard the stories about the mechanic who turned a warship into a hospital ship, and he wanted to be part of it. "The water recycling system on Deck 47 is acting strange," reported, checking his tablet. "Nothing dangerous, but it is not running at full capacity." Sun nodded. "Show me after we finish the inspection. Those systems are 200 years old. They need careful attention." They continued through the corridors. Everywhere they went, crew members from different species greeted them. A medic, a Florian botanist, human doctors, technicians who had defected from the Empire. The ship that had once been built for war was now home to beings who had chosen peace. "Captain," HANA's voice came through the ship's speakers. "We are receiving a distress signal." Sun stopped walking. "What is it?" "A planet called Prime. Their sun has become unstable. Solar flares are destroying their atmosphere. 20 million people are at risk." 20 million people. Sun felt the familiar weight settling on his shoulders. "How long until the next major flare?" "Approximately 72 hours. After that, the planet will become uninhabitable." Sun looked at, "Find me and tell them to meet me on the bridge. We are changing course." The young engineer ran to deliver the message. Sun continued to the bridge alone, his mind already working through the problems they would face. Han was waiting for him when he arrived. She had become one of the ship's best shuttle pilots, leading rescue teams whenever they were needed. The woman who had once been afraid of her brother's power now used that power to save lives every day. "I heard the signal," she said. "Prime, that is a long way from here. We can make it in time if we push the engines." "And the atmospheric damage." Eyes were serious. "Our standard equipment cannot fix a dying atmosphere." Sun sat down in the command chair. "The Eternal Dawn can. HANA, what about the terraforming systems? Can they stabilize a damaged atmosphere?" "Yes," HANA answered. "The terraforming equipment was designed to create breathable air on dead worlds. Repairing existing atmosphere damage would be simpler. However, it would require significant power. We would need to shut down non-essential systems during the operation." "Do it. Prepare everything we need." Me and arrived on the bridge. Behind them came more crew members, taking their stations for the journey ahead. "Prime," Me said, pulling up information on her screen. "They sent a distress call to the Galactic Council 2 weeks ago. No one responded. They said it was too dangerous. They said it was not their responsibility." Crossed his forearms. "My government has many ships. None of them can do what this vessel can do." "That is why we exist," Sun said quietly, "to go where others will not." The Eternal Dawn's engines roared to life. The massive ship turned and began its journey toward the dying world. Crew members across all 47 kilometers of the vessel prepared for what was coming. Medical teams checked supplies. Engineers monitored systems. Everyone had a role to play. Sun stayed on the bridge for most of the journey. He could have rested. He had thousands of crew members who could handle the ship, but he felt responsible for every decision, every life that depended on them arriving in time. On the second day of travel, found him in the engineering bay. The captain was on his knees, hands deep inside a power converter, fixing a problem that any junior engineer could have handled. "Captain, why do you still do repairs yourself?" asked. Sun looked up, grease on his face and under his fingernails. "Because this is who I am. I am not really a captain. I am not a commander. I am a mechanic, and mechanics fix things." "But you have a whole crew now. You do not need to do this work." Sun smiled and returned to the repair. "I need to do this work. It reminds me why I am here. It keeps my hands busy." He paused. "And it keeps them from shaking too much." They arrived at Prime with 6 hours to spare. The planet below them was beautiful once, covered in blue oceans and green forests. But now thick clouds of ash filled the atmosphere and fires burned across the continents. Millions of people looked up at the sky and saw something impossible. A ship larger than any they had imagined, blocking out the damaged sun. "Begin atmospheric stabilization," Sun ordered. The Eternal Dawn's terraforming systems activated. Great vents opened along the ship's hull, releasing compounds that would bond with the toxic particles in the air. Energy beams targeted the worst of the atmospheric damage, breaking down harmful elements. Slowly, carefully, the dying air began to heal. Below, rescue shuttles launched from the ship's hangars, piloted the lead vessel, guiding her team to the most damaged areas. They carried medicine, food, water, and hope. The operation took 48 hours. 48 hours of constant work, constant adjustment, constant worry. Sun did not sleep. He could not. Too many lives depended on getting everything right. When it was finally over, the atmosphere of Prime was stable. Not perfect, but livable. The 20 million people who had been waiting to die would survive. Sun stood at the great window of the bridge, looking down at the world they had saved. His body was exhausted. His eyes could barely stay open. But when he looked at his hands, he noticed something. They were not trembling. For the first time in 6 months, his hands were steady. HANA's voice came to him privately, through a small speaker near his ear. Commander Ho's hands trembled too, throughout his entire career. He told me once that it meant he still understood the weight of what he held. The day his hands stopped shaking, he said, would be the day he forgot why power must be used carefully. Sun smiled sadly. Maybe my hands are just too tired to shake. Perhaps, or perhaps you have finally accepted who you are. Mi approached him, her tablet filled with notes. I have been documenting everything. What you did today, it will be remembered. The mechanic who turned a weapon into a tool for healing. The man who chose to save lives instead of taking them. I am not special, Sun said. Anyone would have done the same. No, said, joining them. His deep voice was unusually soft. Not anyone. I have served warriors my whole life. They would have used this ship for conquest. You are something different, something my people do not have a word for. Landed her shuttle and came to find her brother. She hugged him without saying anything. No words were needed. Later, after the crew had rested and the ship had continued its journey through the stars, found Sun back in the engineering bay. Once again, the captain was on his knees, fixing something that did not need a captain's attention. You never stop, do you? The young engineer asked. Sun wiped his hands on his old rag, the same one he had used back on 7, a lifetime ago. The galaxy is full of broken things, he said. Someone has to fix them. Outside, the eternal dawn moved through the darkness of space. It was no longer a weapon of war. It was not a symbol of power. It was something better. It was a promise. A promise that even the largest, most broken things could be made whole again. That destruction was not destiny. That the right hands, even trembling hands, could choose to heal instead of harm. And somewhere, across the gulf of 200 years, Commander Ho would have smiled to see what his inheritance had become. Not a ship of war. A ship of hope.